Hello everyone. Today, we will start with the basic assumption of the trait concept. Then I will introduce the most important statistical technique in trait theory, factor analysis. We need to start with this basic assumption: everything that exists in some quantity and can therefore be measured. Did Freud quantitatively measure ego, superego? The central argument of the trait concept is that the ability to measure and quantify constructs allows us to test falsifiable theoretical hypotheses, which is what establishes psychology as a science and distinguishes it from other disciplines like literature. The trait theory believes that the most interesting aspects of personality traits have been entered into daily life language. Thus, you can look at the dictionary for personality adjectives, then you can find out some influential personality traits that matter to us in daily life. This is called the lexical sampling hypothesis. Nevertheless, one of the difficulties is that there are too many personality traits in everyday life language, and they are likely to overlap with one another. The goal is to find the primary dimensions underlying of many traits. It is unlikely that each individual personality adjective that we use in daily life represents unique, independent traits. Some traits will go together to reflect another basic trait. For example, sincere, kind and generous are overlapping, and they may cluster together to reflect another basic dimension. Psychologists use a technique called factor analysis to find out the basic dimensions. Now, the researcher's interest is to find which of the variables in a particular set, items, scales, response latencies, etc., form coherent and relatively independent subsets. If some of the traits are clustered together and reflect another underlying factor, then these traits should be highly correlated. To put it simple, factor analysis helps us to identify such clusters so that we can reduce the dimensionality of the correlation matrix. The research paper of trait theory will show you that some of your items clustered together. We will say they have heavy loadings on an underlying factor. For example, these items have heavy loadings on this factor, which was later labeled by the researcher as openness. Now, you may see that the major consideration of the factor analysis is the number of factors to be extracted. With the same data set, different researchers may extract different numbers of factors using different criteria of factor analysis. And this is the main difference between different trait theories. Now I will talk about two major criteria. The first one is called Kaiser eigenvalue criterion. This is the default in SPSS, and it will extract all factors with eigenvalues larger than 1. But it is often very misleading and should never be adopted uncritically. The second one is to use the scree plot. Eigenvalues are plotted against the principal components. The cutoff point for factor extraction is where the line changes slope. We extract all the factors that lie above the break. If there are 2 breaks in the slope, we extract all the factors above the leftmost break. This is how a scree plot looks like. Usually, people will extract the number of factors where the slope changed significantly. For example, it is likely that they will extract 4 factors based on this scree plot. You now know that factor analysis helps researchers to identify patterns of covariation so that we know how many underlying factors are there. However, the statistical software will not help you to interpret the factors. It will only tell you that there are 5 or 6 or 100 factors there. They are factor 1, 2, 3. But what is the meaning of these factors? Researchers need to use their own knowledge and theories to label and interpret them. So, it is possible that researchers use the same data set and the same procedures but come up with different factors. For example, with the same data set and the same statistical procedure, researchers get A, B, C, D and E, 5 factors. However, what is the meaning of A? How to label and interpret each factor? Researchers need to look at those measured items and interpret each factor. For example, a group of researchers may say that these 5 factors represent extroversion, friendliness, conscientiousness, neuroticism and intellect. However, another group of researchers may argue that intellect is not a correct label of these items, and this factor should be labeled as openness. Then with the same data and same procedure, different groups of researchers can have different model.